Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the OMXSX Soccer Performance podcast, where this beautiful game meets elite performance. I'm your host, Sherjin Zangana, a former goalkeeper, coach, and the founder of the OMXSX Soccer Performance Academy. On this podcast, we cover everything there is to do with this beautiful game. Player development, tactics, nutrition, recovery. We'll talk about highlights, the latest news, the latest transfers, or you just want to listen to some opinion on the current state or affairs of what's going on with the world of soccer. Like I mentioned before, my name is Sherjin Zangana. Originally, I was born in Greece, and at around the age of 5, my parents ended up moving to Holland in Nijmegen, and from there, I eventually moved to the United States at the age of around 8 years old. The moment I fell in love with this game was the moment I entered this world, like most kids. All I could remember since everything, I've always had a soccer ball around me. I've always had the ball, in some way, the game has always been involved in my life in some shape or form. And now it's come full circle, and basically it's really has shaped my life in many ways. It's taught me a lot of things in the game, mistakes I made, things I could have done better, ways I could have definitely trained and recovered better that might have made me have more of a chance. I'm not saying I could have made pro, but just you could have gone a little bit further if you had certain information. The two big moments for me in my life when it came to the game of soccer, there's a few with my dad as a youth, even with my brother, where I was an assistant coach. But the biggest one was my final injury on my final attempt to try to make it pro or go as far as I can. And that was like my 6th game in. We were up north, about 30-40 minutes drive. It was at the stadium. We had a decent size crowd, about 50 to 80 people. I know that's not a lot, but hey, for a lower level league like we were, it was a good amount. I don't know what happened that day. My defense, I know one guy, he couldn't make it. Another one was injured. I only had my center back, and the rest of my defense was just a mixture of duct tape put together. And yeah, they came in. The first 10 minutes, they probably had somewhere between 7 to 10 shots on goal. They were already up 2-0 by within 10 minutes, something like that. Striker was coming down, had a shot, I saved. I knocked the ball to the right, and then the left winger, was coming down and trying to get that rebound. And he got it. But the problem is I was focused more on the rebound rather than my landing, and it landed wrong on my arm. And let's just say it was one of the most painful things where I thought I was going to lose my arm. I didn't have insurance. It was a very scary time for a few weeks, like two to 3 weeks. I was still in school for architecture. I was working, I think 2 jobs, maybe 1 job, because there was mixed a couple times. I was a server. I remember having to carry trays, how painful that was. So yeah, that really woke me up that if I tried to continue to train the way that I was, and if I get injured again next time, who knows how bad it was. This was pretty bad, where at least after 2 to 3 weeks, it started to feel better. After about a week, I stopped freaking out that I was going to lose my arm. But anyway, so that was a big wake-up call that, hey, if I don't have the financial means to back myself to train, where if I do get injured, I'll be okay, then I cannot afford to get hurt again. And if something, at least I had my legs, but if something was to happen to a knee, an ankle, a hip, I need surgery, so I had to stop. That was a really hard day to really come to that decision that I was done trying. I'll always remember that day. Oof. The The second big event, which I will get into a little bit later because of recent events, so I won't talk about it too much right now, was my son. Technically, if you knew the story, you would call him my stepson, but that's not a term I like to use. He's the boy that I raised since he was 1 year old for 10 years. I taught him his ABCs, how to walk, how to kick a ball, everything, be a goalie. When he was getting involved in soccer, I started doing research on academies, how they ran, how they trained, how they would take on a player of his age, his situation. And I started doing research, and then I started creating a program from him. It wasn't official, it was just a fun thing. And not only did I create this program from the perspective of a player, trying to make it at whatever level their journey has for them in this game, but I also made this program from the perspective of a coach. I've talked to several coaches where they tell me that just a handful, usually about 1 or 2, sometimes 3 of their players can afford certain private lessons or private training sessions to make their players more developed. Now, with this in mind, what this offers for them is this great opportunity for other players on their team as a coach. However, you get the entire experience, including nutrition, scheduling, mindset, ball skills, tactical, but also focusing on corrective and proper training in a gym setting. Now, instead of just having 3 who are following this structured program for them, now you have closer to 7, 8 players on a squad that are really dedicated, following some kind of program. And with this one, it's the complete package of everything that it takes for a player to develop physically, mentally, nutritionally, tactically. Now, as a parent, what this does is, if you're one of those parents who can't afford that very expensive in-person training, what this does is it allows you to invest in your child's development in the game without really having to break the bank. Because one, those in-person high elite sessions can really get costly. They're amazing. Some of them aren't really necessarily one-on-one. They often are in smaller groups of 4 to 6, sometimes 7 people. So it's not technically one-on-one. This program is one-on-one. When your player has a session with me or one of my coaches, they literally, that's their session, whether the session is regards to tactical, gym, nutrition, mindset, whatever it is, that's their time. That's what that coach is there for, to really help guide you. And if that coach doesn't have those answers, what one of the fundamental things I really teach to my coaches and this program is, you're not always going to have the answer, but you have to be curious to find the answer. That is how we grow. That's what we have to be curious of finding out. If we don't know something, that's okay, but we have to be curious enough to discover that the answer is out there. Maybe we won't find it that first time, but we have to continuously try to find it. Once we find it, we've mastered something about ourselves, not just getting that answer. But as a parent, like I said, you get to see if your child is really serious about this path. A lot of children will say to you, oh, I want to do this, I want this, because they're so mesmerized by the marketing, and I get it, the cool shoes, the colorful shoes, the gear, the FIFA, the video game, I get it. They want to hype it up, but to be an actual player, there's a serious dedication, there's a serious discipline needed to get all that. All your kids are seeing is the end result. They're seeing the flash, the results, the reward. But those players who got that, they had to put in countless of years of disciplined, structured programming through academies. So for you as a parent, you're going to get to see, hey, is my kid really serious? Is he following this program, this whole setup that's designed for him? Is he following his nutrition? Is he following the schedule? Is he following his workout program? Is he following his ball skills, his tactical skills, his mindset skills? Is he following his in-game skills? We really try to cover everything. Even we want the player to even be knowledgeable about the game in itself, not just about current stuff. We really want the player to know the history of certain programs, tactics, teams, why they were created. This is an entire program that really involves this player to become something more, which transcends to something further. Even if they, let's say they do this program for a year or two and they get to a point where they don't want to play anymore, or it's not for them, or it just didn't turn out for them, this will transcend to other elements in their life, whether that's school, their profession, their family, their kids themselves, or maybe they become coaches themselves. It will transcend. This is setting up a positive nature for a parent. Not just, let's just do tactics and you're missing out on so much portion of the game. So let's just do physical training. It needs to be really trying to take care of this kid and design a program for that player, rather than trying to have that player fit a certain framework. And finally, to get to the final point regarding, I made this as a parent for myself as well. Part of the reason why, after the separation, so my son obviously isn't biologically mine, and unfortunately I have not seen him in 3 years. So the thought of returning to the game of soccer in any way, shape, or form had some painful thoughts attached to it. So I didn't know if I ever wanted to again, but after certain things have transpired and pointed me in certain directions, and some internal thoughts and internal dialogues and just a check in life, and I want to return to this beautiful game that I love so much, that has been such a part of my life, was a beautiful part of my relationship with my son. And it's still evident, even though he's been pushed away from the game. He now plays hockey and he's a goaltender, and he's apparently doing very well. With that being said, in this podcast, and it's very interesting that today is the launch of my very first podcast. So this week, so today is August 3rd. And this weekend, actually, something very interesting happened. I started my research into how academies are run and everything because my son started getting into soccer, and I wanted to develop a program for him. We woke up, made shakes, we did the nutrition, we talked about certain things, about certain affirmations. He was the foundation, and it was actually my son who came up with the logo for the program. At the time, it wasn't called OMXSX. It was named after the city we lived in, but it was called the City Phoenix. And I use this logo now as the OMXSX Soccer Performance Academy logo. And part of that, it's just an interesting weekend because my son is actually South Korean. And one of the reasons he got into soccer, because his dad was playing, but also because of Heung-min Son, who played for the Tottenham Hotspurs. And he saw someone who was like him, he related, we instantly became fans. We became fans during the last 2 months when they were on their Champions League journey. It's been some of the most beautiful memories watching the Spurs go through their up and down through coaches. And I remember one of the best memories I have with my son is watching Suns run, I think against Burnley or Burns? I forgot the opposition, but that run, that one goal of the year and everything. I remember we were sitting there, we're just screaming, we're just in shock. It was, what a great moment. So for some reason, the big reason why I created this entire program, this podcast, was because of my son and what we created, I took a fun idea that I had with my son to help him and eventually help some of his friends, and now I've created it into this whole program. And it's an honor of my son and our relationship and those memories that we had training together, that I've created this program as for a young man, for myself, as a player, wherever you are, whatever age you are. This program, it can adapt to you. And for him, this is how I stay connected to him until one day we're reunited, hopefully, and he can see this program that I created that just started back in the day when he was 8 years old. But I want to say thank you to Heung-min Son. Thank you for the memories. Truly, they were some of the most beautiful moments in my life, watching the Spurs with him. So really, thank you. Thank you for the memories. It's funny, it's 10 years. 10 years marks how long I was with him. 10 years you played for the Spurs. The weekend you announced your leave from the team is the same weekend. And I was trying to launch this podcast a few weeks ago. But there's so much preparation. It's a lot more than you think of preparation, practice, make sure I'm not comfortable in front of the video and microphone and talking, but I really love to help people. I love to help players. I love to help people become more. I love to help motivate people. I love helping people become healthier, the better versions of themselves. I really think there's a whole spiritual level to it. But there's a whole preparation to all of this whole content creation, podcasts, scripts, ideas, planning ahead. I had to plan ahead other podcasts and editing. So I just finally I was able okay, this is the weekend. And I made it all planned, lined it all up, and this is the weekend that Heung-min Son decides to announce that he'll be leaving the Spurs. So it's very strange, very interesting. Been an interesting weekend. Why he announced it this weekend and why. Anyways, so with that being said, thank you, Heung-min Son, for all the wonderful memories you provided me with my son and everybody else who enjoyed you. You're a great representation of the game. You're a great representation of a player on and off the field. A great role model. I couldn't have asked for a better role model as a father. I really appreciate that. How you carried yourself was a great display for my son, and I really wish you the best of luck moving forward. And apparently, if you are moving to the LA Galaxy, I don't know if those rumors are true, I'll be moving to LA sometime soon too, so maybe I'll be able to finally, maybe eventually one day get to see you play out there. Anyways, I'm losing my voice, sorry, I'm just recovering from getting my voice back. So with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in today's episode. If you found anything that resonated with you today, whether that's a mindset shift, a training attitude, just a better understanding of what's to come, please make sure to like, subscribe, share, and follow. If you want to learn more about the OMXSX Soccer Performance Academy or for private coaching, that's OMXSX.com. Or you can connect with me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Thank you again for joining me today. Again, my name is Sherjin Zangana. Remember, train smart, train effective, and always respect the game. Have a blessed day. Na 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 na.